For Chapter 2, I first want to discuss what it means by discussing the boundaries of the assignment. Well, what does boundaries mean? Well, first of all, it means what kind of paper am I supposed to be writing? What kind? Is it in response to something else? Is it a subjective piece, meaning is it based mainly on my opinion? Do I need to use outside sources? So the boundaries can have a lot to do with how you begin your essay. Another important question that has to do with boundaries is the scope of the paper. And I usually, almost the first question that students ask is, how long does this paper have to be? And that has to do with the scope of the assignment. And it's actually a very good question, because how long the paper is going to determine how you go about writing the paper and what you have to say and what points you're going to make. Because a paper that is 3 pages in length is going to be significantly different than a paper that is 20 pages in length. Your organization, your style, what you have to say, and how you say it is going to be completely different for those 2 different lengths of paper. You also want to think about purpose, and there are 3 main purposes that we're going to talk about. The first one is to inform. To inform is as simple as it sounds. You're giving information to your audience. You're not necessarily trying to persuade them in any way. You're just giving the information there. It's there for the taking, and they can do with it what they will. The second type of purpose is to persuade. And this is where you actually are trying to persuade your audience to either accept your position on a particular topic, maybe persuade them to do something, to get active. And the third type of purpose that we're going to be focusing on this semester is to entertain. And most people like to be entertained, although that's one of the more difficult things to do in writing. Now, you can choose any of the 3 purposes, or you can incorporate them together and use them together. You can have one essay that does all 3. It informs the audience in order to persuade them, and at the same time provides entertainment. So you can do one, or you can do all, or any order in conjunction with one another. Another really important thing to think about in your essay writing is your audience. Audience, audience, audience. Who's your audience? And the reason that audience is important is, I'll give you a quick example. Let's say you are a firefighter and you are writing a procedure, a process or a procedure, or a how-to do something. If you're writing that how-to for an audience of your peers or other firefighters or people who are within that profession, you're going to go about that a lot differently than if you're writing to people who are not in that profession, or we can call them lay people, who do not have a specific technical background or do not have a specific technical knowledge of that field. So if you were writing to your peers, you're not going to have to include definitions of terminology, because those peers are already going to know that, because that's part of their field. However, if you're writing for a layperson or for a novice or a beginner who doesn't have that background information, you are going to have to supply that background information. You're going to have to define technical terms, possibly. So be aware of who your audience is. And the key thing to think about for audience is, what does my audience know and what do they need to know? Because you don't want to repeat things that they already know. If you were writing for that firefighter audience, and you gave simple information that everybody should know, your audience is going to become bored. They're going to get bored and they're going to become frustrated and possibly stop reading, because you're giving them information that they already have and they don't need to have. Where on the other hand, if you're writing for that lay audience who doesn't have that technical knowledge, and you use the terminology that they don't understand, or you or you don't give them adequate background information, they're also not going to be able to understand. They too are going to get frustrated, and they're probably not going to read what you have to write. So every article has to be, or every essay that you write has to be tailored to your particular audience. So when thinking about your audience, you need to know, first of all, what do they know? What do they need to know? What other information can you find out about your audience? Is it a particular age group? For example, if you were writing to a group of high school students, you might tailor that essay differently than if you were writing to a group of people in a retirement community. So think about all of the different demographic backgrounds of your audience, if possible. Try to get a good idea of who they are and what they know, what they need to know, and what they would like to know, and tailor your essay to those specific needs.